All right. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar on your guide to cross-company planning during uncertain times. We have Prophix with us today, and they're going to be talking about how you can do some better cross-company planning in these uncertain times. So I'm Sarah Novak, the marketing manager at LBMC Technology Solutions, and just want to go over some housekeeping items before we get started. First, all the phone lines have been muted to eliminate any background noise. If you have any technical difficulties, if you can't see the presentation, please let us know with the chat panel. We'll be taking questions throughout today's webinar, and we'll answer as many as we have time for, but please submit them in the Q&A panel. If we don't get to your question, we'll be sure and follow up after the webinar. We will be recording this webinar, and we'll be sending that out afterwards. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to John Sabek. John Sabek is a solutions engineer at Prophix. He's been with Prophix for 5 years, but has several experience also in internal audit and financial planning. And the last 2 years, he's actually won the President's Club at Prophix. So he's quite the superstar. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Perfect. So just a couple quick slides on my end before we actually jump into the demonstration here. Usually what we're trying to do is help organizations that at the moment currently live in the Excel environment. Typically what we find is that, you might be pulling in data from a couple source systems. This could be your ERP, it could be the payroll system, CRM system, and there's usually a few key people that are involved with that process. But what we find is that over time, usually systems are being added, additional people are hired. If you go through an acquisition phase, once again, you have additional complexities as well. And those spreadsheets that once were suitable for your current needs tend to grow, and then you run into issues as they relate to calculation errors, formulas, along with reference errors as well. Within Prophix, it really doesn't have to be that way. We have the ability to go ahead and pull that information into what we call centralized models within the application. So we have the ability to connect directly to any of your source systems. This, once again, could be the ERP, could be your payroll system, CRM system, inventory system, fixed asset system. And what we would do with that data is then really provide the ability to cover these 5 key areas. So there's 5 key platforms or pillars within Prophix that allow you to actually go ahead and do your planning and budgeting. And that can be done for expenses, personnel, operational, revenue planning, along with project planning and cash planning as well. Once we pull your data into Prophix, and this could be actual data, you have your budget data along with forecast data, you can actually go ahead and utilize Prophix from a reporting standpoint. So you can go ahead and set up all of your key financial statements. You could create performance reports along with dashboards. We also even have an ad hoc environment where if you want to go ahead and slice and dice your data, you could actually do so as well. And since we connect directly to your source systems, we actually have the unique capability of drilling all the way down to the transactional level detail. On the streamlined side, we actually have automation and workflow built into Prophix. And that automation is part of the integration component where we're connecting directly to your source systems to pull in that information on a scheduled basis. So this could be done overnight, could be done a couple times throughout the day. As you're approaching month-end close, then journal entries are being coded, expenses are being booked. You can actually go ahead and run it on an ad hoc basis as well. We also have workflow capability or functionality to actually go ahead and send out templates and reports to key stakeholders within the organization, thereby driving collaboration and accountability back down to the individual within the organization. And then on the financial consolidation side, we have the ability to go ahead and do full consolidations within Prophix, taking into consideration multiple entities, multiple currencies. You can actually go ahead and create a complete elimination process within Prophix as well. And lastly, we have our virtual financial analyst, in which case that really takes into consideration anomaly detection, chart insights, and our task assistant as well. So one last slide here. This is just a very high-level view of how Prophix works. And typically what we would do is sit down with you guys and talk about all your source systems that you utilize from a planning and reporting standpoint. So this would be your GL system. You may utilize a CRM system such as Salesforce. Along with that, you probably have an HR or payroll system as well. And some organizations have data that resides within large Excel books. And the idea here is that we can connect to those through Prophix's import wizards. And basically, it's a step-by-step wizard that allows you to go ahead and connect to these data sources and pull that information into a model within Prophix. So it's pretty common for organizations to go ahead and create their main financial model. Then they'll go ahead and create a personnel model, CapEx model, inventory model. And the best part about these models is that they can actually talk to each other and feed summary level information between them. Now, with all that data, what we can actually go ahead and do is create all of your reports within Prophix. They can actually go ahead and be exported out into a variety of formats, including Excel, PDF, Word. We also have a tablet application, so you can actually go ahead and access Prophix on any of your handheld devices, such as your smartphones or tablets. And last point, by being able to connect directly to the source system, we always have the ability to go ahead and drill down to the transactional level and take a look at the underlying data that makes up a particular balance. Okay, bear with me one second. I'm going to go ahead and jump into our demo environment here. Perfect. You should see your screen change in just a second here. And really for the next 20 minutes or so, my main goal is to walk you through a day in the life of a Prophix user. As you can see, Prophix is a web-based application. So in terms of gaining access, you could utilize your favorite web browsers. So Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, along with Safari, all pretty common ones. We do support single sign-on, which allows you to actually go ahead and pass through your security credentials, in which case a lot of users end up defaulting Prophix to be their homepage. When we connect directly to your source systems, once again, it's totally up to you in terms of the data that you want to go ahead and pull into your dashboard and utilize it from a dashboarding standpoint. So before you go ahead and do any sort of cross-company planning or forecasting, it's pretty common for end users to actually go ahead and analyze their data that they're dealing with. And this is just an example of the dashboard that I've put together where you'll notice we could track revenue-related data, we could track gross margin, cost of goods sold, we could track working cap along with inventory. On the revenue side, we may want to track our top 5 customers and even break down our cost of materials by our geographical locations. So data is data. Once again, we connect directly to the source system to be able to pull that into Prophix. And then with that data, you could actually go ahead and create as many different types of dashboards as you like. It's pretty common for users to go ahead and create standardized dashboards for their different stakeholders. So you may set one up for the executives, you may set one up for the finance group, and have a separate one for the ops team as well. The nice part being is that security actually blankets the entire product. So you can actually go ahead and create those standardized dashboards, roll them out to all those individuals, and they're only going to be able to take a look at the data that their security rights permit them to do so. From an analysis standpoint, there's a couple different ways that a user can actually interact with the data. We actually leverage off of AI capabilities in the form of what we call chart insights. So you'll notice little information icons in all of the charts and graphs. So it's pretty common for users to come in, click on the little information icon, and sort of get an understanding of what's going on with the data behind the actual visual. In addition to that, everything's actually fully interactive within the charts and graphs. So for example, if we're taking a look at our revenue variance trends, you may want to start high level from a quarterly view. From there, you can actually go ahead and drill down into a monthly view. And we could take things one step further. If we right click, we can actually take a look at, select the little link, in which case Prophix will go ahead and pull up any type of report that you have linked to that particular chart or graph. So once again, this is sort of all the analysis that you might want to do prior to updating your forecast. And in this case, you can actually go ahead and play around with these reports where you notice that we could have it broken down by our quarters. We could go down to a monthly view if we need to. We also have this particular one broken out by territories. So as I go ahead and make a selection, Prophix will go ahead and render the data that's associated with it. Any of the reports you create can be formatted to whatever look and feel that you prefer. As you can see, you can include a logo, you can include charts and graphs, you could select the colors of the bars. Off of any report, what's actually really unique to Prophix is that you can actually further analyze this data. If you go ahead and select Analyze, Prophix is going to go ahead and strip away the formatting of the report and allow you to actually go ahead and slice and dice it further. So what we can do here is you notice that we have this favorability coming from our wholesale channel. We can actually go ahead and drill down into that and take a look at the actual customers that make up our wholesale group. Okay. Now, if we come over here to the left-hand side, we can actually grab any of these items within the Pages section and drag them into our canvas here. Okay, so we can grab territories, drop it within the canvas, and Prophix is actually going to go ahead and swap the two out. Okay, so you'll notice that we can break it down by territories. From there, we can actually go down to a regional view. And then from a regional view, we can actually go down to a sales rep view as well. As long as that data is stored within your source system, once again, we would pull that into Prophix and leveraging from an analysis and reporting standpoint. If you ever want to go back to a previous view, you can actually go ahead, hit the little back arrow. And as you do so, once again, Prophix is going to go ahead and pull up the previous view. The last point that I want to make here real quick is that a huge benefit of being able to go ahead and connect directly to any source system is that we can actually right-click, select drill across, and this is where Prophix is actually going to go ahead and pull up all the underlying transactions that make up that particular balance. Okay, so based on the table that we would set up with you, determines exactly what sort of details or information we would pull in. You know, so we could pull in invoice-related details, we could pull in information related to the sales rep, the values that are associated with as well. And if there's any type of images that are stored, whether they be invoices, receipts, journal entry backup, we can actually go down to that level as well. So if you think of what we're doing, really, we like to say that we provide that structured approach to end users to actually come in and do all of their own analysis. They would have their own dashboard set up, or as you can see, you can interact with it. You could drill down into your data. If there's more information that you need, you could always go ahead and pull up a formal style report. And literally by the fourth click of your mouse, you're actually all the way down to the invoice level without ever leaving the application. And keep in mind, since we connect directly to your source systems, all this information is actually pulled in on a scheduled basis. And by doing so, all of your data that resides in your dashboard, your charts, your graphs, your reports, is automatically updated for you. Okay. In the event that this is a view that you like, you can always go ahead and save this. And every time you open it up, once again, it's going to reflect any of the new changes or new transactions that Prophix will go ahead and pull in. Okay. Now, sort of once you've done your analysis, this is where you may want to go ahead and switch gears and actually jump into either the budgeting side of things or the forecasting. If you're a couple months into the new year, chances are by now your budget is irrelevant, especially with what's going on currently, right? Before we actually go ahead and open up a template, I want to talk a little bit about automation and workflow. So you'll notice that I'm currently logged in as Tony Stark. And if I come down to the middle of my dashboard, over here to the left-hand side, you'll notice a section called My Tasks. Okay, that represents essentially my own individual workflow as a budget manager or a contributor. And what's actually pretty neat is that I could hit this little rocket ship. I could come in, take a look at what I currently have on the go. Any tasks that I missed will actually show up within the overdue section. And as I go ahead and complete items, they'll actually show up within the completed column. So this sort of really becomes that one-stop for a contributor to come in and take a look at anything that might be responsible for. Some of your budget managers may have one task that's been assigned to them. Some may have 3 or 4. Once again, it all depends in terms of how involved they are with the overall process, but it's a great way to sort of streamline your actual complete budget or forecast cycle in a sense that you're not having to create separate templates in Excel that then are attached to Outlook and kicked out to all of your budget managers. In this case, they can actually go ahead and click on a task, and Prophix will go ahead and pull up the template that they're required to fill out. Okay, so a lot of organizations, when it comes to sort of projections, they'll actually sort of start off from the revenue or the sales component, or they'll come in and reforecast what sales are going to look like, because that's going to dictate where changes need to be made within the organization as well. And here's just an example of a revenue reforecast template that I've put together, where you'll notice we can actually plan at the customer level. So we can actually plan by customer, by industry, if we want to go ahead and break it down, and we can actually plan by our product types. So some of our customers will go ahead and plan by product category. Some go down to the SKU level. This is a manufacturing related example. For customers that we have that are school related or higher ed, they'll go ahead and plan by program and then factor in enrollment. For insurance companies, they'll plan by the various product offerings by producers, Once again, they may replace customers by producers and have their producers and sales reps as a dimension within Prophix. And then for not-for-profits, they usually tend to plan by their various types of funding sources, so donations and any other type of grants that they might receive. That's one of the huge benefits of respect to the way Prophix works, and it actually speaks to our large, diverse client base. So Prophix really provides the flexibility for any organization to actually utilize the application to allow them to plan how they would need to. So within the example that we're taking a look at here right now, you'll notice that we have our actuals, right? So actuals are locked down. These are pulled in directly from our source systems. We can't make any changes or edits to them. But where we would be able to is where we have our remaining forecast months. From an input standpoint, we could come in, enter in a new value directly into a cell. So we can play around with quantity. We could play around with average selling price. And as we do so, Prophix is going to go ahead and update that data for us. Let's say we want to go ahead and adjust data in bulk, right? We could actually select the remainder of the year, right-click, select adjust data, and maybe just due to the current times we anticipate sales to drop a little bit, we could actually go ahead, enter in that value, hit enter, and Prophix will go ahead and update that for us automatically. We could also enter in a value at the total level. So for example, let's say we anticipate for product number 1, the quantity to be for the entire year sold to be 3,000 units. And here there's a number of different ways we can actually spread this data down to the monthly level. So spread evenly is going to take the total and allocate the remainder evenly across our 9 periods here. If we have values already within the template, Prophix can actually respect that seasonality and update it proportionally based on the new value that you've entered. Where Prophix gets extremely powerful is that we can actually go into this show more section and we can actually leverage off of any of these items, which we would call dimensions in Prophix, to actually spread our data. So we can actually come into our account dimension, and this is where you'd have access to your complete balance sheet, P&L, cash flow accounts. You can even create statistical drivers to actually go ahead and spread your data as well. So you may have one based on quantity, you may have it based on utilization. You can actually go ahead and utilize them in conjunction with one another as well. In our example, let's go ahead and select spread evenly. And once again, you'll notice that Prophix will go ahead and not touch our actuals and allocate the remainder across our remaining 9 periods. Okay, and we could actually go ahead and update each and every one of these different products and model out different assumptions as well. Once you've actually gone ahead and made changes to the revenue pieces or revenue components, chances are you're going to go ahead and update the expense side of things as well. So as a budget manager, I might have another template that has been assigned to me, in which case we can actually go ahead and now update our remaining expense items. So when it comes time to planning expenses, we see this done a number of different ways. Organizations are normally planning by cost center, by department, by region, by territory, or any combination of that. And typically their template will look something similar to this, where you would have all of your accounts within your rows, your months within the columns. Some organizations plan monthly, some plan quarterly, some plan annually. We'd actually sit down with you to go ahead and set up your template to reflect that accordingly. But same idea from an input standpoint, you'll notice that actuals are locked down, so you can't make any changes or edits to them. This is where you as an end user may want to take a look at the underlying transactions. So users can actually right-click, select drill across, and Prophix will go ahead and pull up all the underlying transactions that make up that balance. And then where you can actually go ahead and reforecast is where you have your remaining budget values. So you can come in to cells, you could enter in new values directly into them. You could adjust data in bulk if you select a couple of accounts and a couple months worth of data. And you can even go ahead and do those top level spreads as well. Okay. Along with that, you probably have a payroll related component, right? So we can jump back out, click on our payroll planning task. And this is where we're going to go ahead and leverage off of your payroll related data. This information usually is imported into Prophix via an Excel file or CSV document. We do have the ability to connect directly by API, but usually third-party payroll vendors charge a pretty substantial amount. I believe it's in upwards of $30,000 a year. And therefore, for payroll planning, which is only done a couple times throughout the year potentially, it just makes sense to actually go ahead and receive a flat file, which we can actually automate and pull that into Prophix on an automated basis as well. Okay, so within my example here, you'll notice I pulled in the employee ID, the name of the individual, their hire date. You can factor in an end date, which allows you to take into consideration retirements, leaves, terminations. Individuals can be tagged to a specific entity, a specific department, and then we get into all their payroll-related attributes as well. So if there's any particular attributes that you utilize from a payroll planning standpoint, those can all be imported into Prophix and then be leveraged to go ahead and drive your payroll-related components. In my example, you'll notice we have earnings, benefits, increases, taxes. Keep in mind, the actual calculations are centralized within the model, so they don't reside within this actual canvas itself. You'll notice that there's no formulas. And the biggest benefit with respect to that is now you can actually rest assured that the exact same logic is being applied consistently throughout the entire organization. Usually when you have a ton of formulas that reside within your Excel workbooks over time, they tend to compound, and as a result, you're sitting there when you've clicked on the actual file to open, and it takes in upwards of 3 to 5 minutes, depending upon how big that actual workbook is. So these are the pretty standard components as they relate to payroll. You'll notice that within Prophix, we can actually take into consideration any type of payroll cycle that you're on. So some organizations are on weekly, some are semi-monthly, some operate on a 5-4-4 calendar, others are on a 4-4-5. We can actually take into consideration all those different attributes from a planning standpoint to allow you to go ahead and plan your payroll component accordingly. In my example, we're planning at the named employee level. However, a lot of organizations that have high turnover within certain departments will actually choose to go ahead and plan by position. So really the idea here to paint the picture is that you have one area where you can come in, you can add some people, you can remove some people, you can update any of their payroll-related details. Once you're satisfied with that, you could simply hit the little update icon, and now Prophix is going to go ahead and feed this information into your financial model where it's going to go ahead and update your payroll component. So by doing so, we've made a couple of changes, and you'll notice that Prophix will go ahead and update our payroll section. Okay. Also within Prophix is constantly re-aggregating and summarizing your data. So there's no more manual linking of tabs or spreadsheets or workbooks together. In my example, since we leverage off a centralized model, Prophix knows to go ahead and aggregate the values from our product marketing team, content, and field marketing into our overall consolidated view for us. Okay, we can even do top-level spreads as well. Let's say we anticipated office expenses for 3 different departments to be $50,000. We could enter in that value into that consolidated template, and Prophix actually realize that this is a consolidated view and ask us how we like to push it back down to our 3 different departments. So there's a number of different options. Once again, very similar to the ones we discussed before. You could create your own custom spread method. The one thing that I want to point out is that there's no formulas, no calculations that reside. You don't have to go ahead and set up a calculation to spread your data. And the reason being is that, once again, Prophix is leveraging off that data set that is centralized within its model to provide you these capabilities to go ahead and leverage the data without creating formulas and calculations. If we select spread evenly, once again, Prophix will go ahead and allocate about $16,000 down to each one of our different departments there. In addition to that, within Prophix, you can actually come in and create as many different scenarios as you like. So you can model out various cases, best case, base case, worst case. You'll notice that version 2 and version 3 are currently blank. And the reason why is I left them blank intentionally because I want to show you how easy we can actually spin up a new version on the fly here. So if I go to my favorite section, this is where you can actually have your favorite reports posted to. I have a process called Populate Forecast. And now this is where you can actually leverage off of the power of Prophix to go ahead and update your forecast scenarios. There's really just 4 main tabs that you would need to fill out. First one, you just got to specify where the data is coming from. So we're going to leverage off our original forecast, and we're going to go ahead and update version 2. Second, you'd want to come in and select what you want to go ahead and adjust. In my example, I've selected all of my expense accounts and all my driver accounts. You could get very granular. You could select a single account. You could select a group of accounts. you could select all of your counts. It's totally up to you in terms of what you want to go ahead and adjust. And then we could come in, select the departments or cost centers or entities that we want to go ahead and have the change applied to. So I've selected all of my marketing departments. And lastly, you tell Prophix how you want to go ahead and manipulate that data. So here we could adjust by a percentage. We could increase or decrease. We could do so by absolute amounts as well. And then we can even multiply and divide our data. So within this particular scenario, version 2, we're going to go ahead and apply a 3% increase. And then within version 3, we're going to go ahead and apply a decrease of 5%. So literally, you'd set that up, hit the little run button, and Prophix will go ahead and run this process for you automatically. So a lot of organizations, this is really where they spend a lot of their time, especially if they're playing around with different levers and modeling out different assumptions. We close out of here real quick. We could jump back out to our forecast, and you'll notice that Prophix will go ahead and spin up these new versions for us literally on the fly here. So quick and easy way within Prophix. As you can see, this is usually an area where a lot of organizations spend majority of their time, especially if they're trying to go down to the departmental or cost center level to go ahead and update that data. Yeah, so just taking a look at my notes here, trying to think of anything else that we should cover. But I think just based on cross-functional planning, this provides a good high-level overview of how you'd be able to sort of streamline that process by utilizing Prophix. So I believe there is a polling question. Sarah? I'm going to go ahead and turn that back over to you.
Yep, I'm going to go ahead and send out the poll right now. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and submit those. I know we have a couple here in the Q&A panel, but I have opened up that poll to everybody. John, we did have a question about whether or not Prophix integrates with Intact, and it does integrate with Sage Intacct as well as Microsoft Dynamics, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Prophix is system agnostic, meaning that it actually can connect to any source system. So Infor, Great Plains, Salesforce even. We've actually connected to over 300 different source systems in order to go ahead and pull that data into Prophix and then allow customers to leverage it from a dashboarding, reporting, and planning standpoint.
Right. And then there's a question, someone says, we currently use Excel. Can any of that logic be transferred over, or do we need to start from scratch?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's exactly typically where things start. What we would do is our consultants would sit down with you and take a look at those Excel files, and we'll actually go ahead and leverage that, the sort of the logic in order to go ahead and set that up centrally within a model. The best part is that you're replacing those hundreds of calculations centrally where you set it up one time and it can be utilized across the entire organization.
Okay, great. Well, I know this was you did a great job presenting this in such a short amount of time. And if anyone like more information, please feel free to reach out. We will be sending out the recording in the next couple of days. And then also include a survey. We'd love to get your feedback. And again, if you would like any more information, John, if you don't mind going to that last slide.
Yeah.
With all of our contact information.
Sure. Just bear with me one sec.
And these are our strategic account managers. So please reach out if you are interested in more information on Prophix. We'd be glad to get that to you. And thanks so much for attending today's presentation, and we hope you have a great day.